Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Inslee Insights. I'm Hamad, and I'm joined with Dan from Stadium Insure. Today, we'll be taking you through Dan's business at Stadium Insure, what that kind of entails, a little bit more about Dan himself, and how he uses the Inslee software as well. So, without further ado, Dan, it's amazing to have you on. Thank you very much for joining us. I know our listeners are really looking forward to this episode as well. So again, welcome, and yeah, over to you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so again, my name's Dan Lorber. I've been in the insurance industry for 25 plus years. Started out as a insurance agent, a captive insurance agent, and then became a high net worth broker. And with the volatility of the market here in California, I sold my insurance business and I built an MGA focused on insuring sports memorabilia. We found a niche market, and I've been a longtime collector, 30 years plus of collecting high-end sports memorabilia. And there really wasn't an insurance product on the market. And with my experience, I felt that we could build a competitive product like no other and a better product than other products that are on the market. So put together my passion of collecting and my knowledge of insurance, and we built out this MGA, and we're having a good time building this company.
Amazing. And what an interesting niche as well of sports memorabilia. I think that's very fascinating, and we'll dive into that a little bit deeper the further on that we go. But for now, it would be great for you to tell us a little bit more about your journey and what kind of led you to the world of insurance. And did you always kind of see yourself in that space in number one in insurance and number two in sports memorabilia specifically?
Yeah, so I've been a collector ever since I was a kid of sports. I, played sports, grew up around sports, and loved investing. And I collected, started out with baseball cards, and then grew into autographed memorabilia, and then transitioned to game use sports memorabilia. And the value of these the so-called assets now have grown uh, significantly over the last 10 years, where people are spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on these items. So, been passionate about sports my whole life. And like I said, I was a collector. Um, I dove into the insurance industry. My father was an insurance agent. And, it's one of those things. You graduate from college and, what do I do next? And got my insurance license, opened up my insurance agency as a captive insurance agent here in Silicon Valley, and built one of the largest insurance agencies in the state of California. Insurance market has changed over the last 10 years. It's moving into a direct to consumer product where the captive agent model is kind of going to the wayside, and commissions are being cut. Most people choose to do business online. And so I sold my agency and worked for a high net worth broker. And again, like I said, there's some challenges here in California, whether it's wildfire or earthquake, where the market is pretty difficult to navigate here in the state. So I wanted to do something I was passionate about. I'm too young to retire. So we built this MGA. Myself and a couple of partners built this program. We found a need for it in the market. And again, put my insurance knowledge and my love for collecting together and build something out fun.
Nice, amazing. That's a great story. And if we're to take the collecting, obviously before you started the company, you were a collector. Um, you know, it's a very interesting space, isn't it? Because there's different sports, there's different leagues, for example. Tell us a little bit more about your kind of journey as a collector, and maybe a little bit more about your favorite sports or your favorite collectibles.
Yeah, no, so I started out with collecting baseball cards. A big San Francisco Giants fan. Collected cards growing up. And then as I got older, I got into autographs. I was fascinated by, you know, getting stuff signed for whatever reason. I go to celebrity golf tournaments and Michael Jordan to sign a basketball or a jersey. And I thought that was really cool. And then I start to realize that this stuff is mass produced. Like these guys are going to be alive for another 50 years. They're going to sign plenty of autographs. So I turned my attention to game used memorabilia. So I collected like Barry Bonds, game used bats, game used jerseys, got into photo matching, and these items that, were worth, 500 or $1,000 10 years ago when I purchased them are now in excess of $100,000. So, um, I just kept buying game used equipment, and I built a network of friends that collect as well. And people reached out to me with my insurance background and would ask me, how do we insure these things? We're worried about them being covered in transit, covered while shipping, or if their house burned down, it wasn't covered under their homeowner's insurance, or there was a sub limit. So with all that knowledge, I was able to build something out that, just like jewelry or artwork or other collectibles, whether it's coins, we built something out specifically for the modern day sports collector. And I think we have a superior product, and it really fits the needs of what our clients are looking for in the hobby.
Amazing. Yeah. And that's a true kind of problem solution kind of finding itself, right? Of the collectors or the community that you kind of found yourselves with or yourself with, and them needing that solution to ensure their collectibles. I think that's a very fascinating story. And say, for example, if you had to pick out, obviously, I'm sure the portfolio of items that Stadium Insure has is probably quite wide and quite varied as well. But if you maybe had to pick out one or two examples of collectibles that are the most memorable or the most unusual that are currently insured at the moment, or ones that you see, could be ones that go up in value or whatever, so something that kind of catches your eye when it comes to the most memorable.
Well, the most memorable stuff, I would think some of the game used jerseys, like Michael Jordan game worn jersey, game used bats that are matched to significant home runs or historic home runs. But also there's some vintage cards that you don't see pop up very often, whether it's most likely the higher end ones were baseball cards and some high end basketball cards that are one of one or graded, what we call a gem mint 10 or a perfect 10 that are, have a population report of, one or two, where those cards values are in excess of, one, two, three, $4 million. And it's just
Wow.
amazing that these things are out there. But yeah, every day I'm amazed when I see what people buy or what people collect, or, you're surprised that somebody actually owns that artifact, whether it's a fight worn, Muhammad Ali trunks, Michael Jordan finals, NBA jersey. Um, people do collect this stuff and spend a significant amount of money on it.
Wow. Yeah. And that's a whole new world to a lot of people who are probably listening about kind of the game worn jerseys, for example. That's yeah, that's it's super cool. So yeah, if we talk about Stadium Insure a little bit more, and you've already kind of explained the journey and the story behind it and kind of how it's evolved over time. Um, what would you say are the biggest risks in the specific sports memorabilia niche? Biggest risks and the biggest challenges when it comes to maybe pricing or underwriting those items, for example.
Yeah, the challenging part is it's a market where, these collectibles are bought, sold, and traded every day for a lot of people. There's different collectors. There's one that are actually trying to build a collection, and they put it away and you're never going to see it again. But you have collectors or what we call flippers in the hobby, that buy it one day for one price and then sell it the next day for the other. And there's constant transactions. So that's the most challenging part, because when pricing a product like this, it's like, how many people are storing it in a vault in their house, and how many people are carrying it around at different trade shows, in a
Yeah.
suitcase, for example, or shipping cards of significant value across the country. Um, so there's different within the hobby. There's different collectors out there, and so the risk is different in certain aspect. Where there's someone who, like I said, has it in a gun safe in their house, the odds of it being stolen are a lot less likely. than somebody who's taking these cards to trade shows or shipping cards in to get graded or buying and selling constantly. So that's probably the most challenging part, but we try to build a comprehensive product that actually takes all that into consideration.
Nice. And it must be an industry where there's a lot of new trends, for example. So I know with I think it's TCG, trading card games.
Right.
I think there's new editions that launch all of the time. So are there any new trends that you see kind of happening in the world of collectibles today?
Yeah, no, TCG, I mean, I'm not a TCG collector, but it's a significant market. I go to a couple of these trade shows or what we call card shows, and TCG has kind of taken over. You know, when I start seeing the value of these Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering cards, it's amazing what a cult following they have. And there's cards in excess of $1 million, and it's not tied to an athlete or how well an athlete's doing. It's all based on, supply and demand, the scarcity of the card, the artwork on the card. And yeah, that market has exploded over the last few years. So definitely TCG is a whole nother space in the card collecting world, but it's competing heavily with competing in value with the sports card collectors.
Amazing. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's just something that I see kind of frequently popping up is the new Pokemon cards and the Magic the Gathering. There always seems to be some sort of new version or new edition.
Exactly.
So yeah, great to get your take. So I guess the next question I've got is, there are other players, insurance players within the sports memorabilia and collectors space. What would you say that sets Stadium apart from everyone else in the market?
Yeah. So, like I said, we built a comprehensive product. Typically, when we looked at other carriers or our competition, it was kind of archaic how they sold the insurance product. Um, the buying and selling of sports memorabilia has changed over the last 10 years. Like I said, there's a lot of selling on eBay or through Facebook groups and stuff like that. So shipping is a big concern for collectors as well. So we address that in our policy where we have a shipping limit. The other nice thing about our policy is it's direct to consumer. There's no faxing and paperwork to a insurance agent or a broker. We have built out a mobile application where once the client signs up for, or the insured signs up for a policy, they can download the mobile application. And as they build their collection, whether it's buy, sell, or trading items, they go in the mobile app and can simply take a photo of the front and back of those items. And we digitally catalog those items on their policy. So a lot of collectors felt that it would be a burden to insure their items because they would constantly uh, be contacting their agent as they make changes to the policy. We actually put the power of the product in the consumer's hands by allowing them the opportunity to add new items to their policy or take them off, whether it's on midnight at night or on a Saturday or Sunday, or if they're at a trade show. They could simply take a photo of that item and catalog it in our mobile app and have it covered in minutes.
Amazing. And that's really good because essentially it's very close to real time, right? Because I guess if you use a broker or an intermediary and you buy a new car or a yacht, for example, there's always that delay, isn't there, from, when it will actually get insured. So from what you've described, I think you're really trying to give the power back to the actual collectors, so they can do things in real time.
That's correct. That's exactly what we're doing. Yeah. And like I said, from being in the property and casualty space as an insurance agent, uh, the value of the insurance agent has gone down over time because people want stuff covered immediately. They want to get a hold of somebody immediately. Like you said, if they buy a car or a yacht on the weekend, they want to be able to make that transaction quickly. So uh, that was kind of where we were going when we built this out. We wanted to be, an insurance technology forward company. And I think we've built that out here. The customers or the market has been real receptive to what we're doing and what we've built.
Amazing. And then I'd love for the duration of this conversation to talk about collectibles and to stay on that topic. But we do have a lot of people in our audience who are insurance companies, small insurance companies, but also MGAs as well. Um, a lot of underwriters as well who listen in to Inslee Insights. So if we were to give kind of that insurance kind of audience a little bit of a background on yourself or on Stadium, for example, if we were to give them some context, what would we say, or what would you say would be kind of your size of company at the moment if you had to talk about kind of premiums, for example?
Yeah, so we're a startup company. So we've been live. It took us about We've been up and operating for about 3 years now. Uh, 2 years of development, whether it was, with the front end system and then the back end system and building that out. But we've just started spending marketing dollars and growing the business. We started with a soft launch and built up the company, but we're still in that growing stage, and we're in the process of raising capital to really put gas on the fire and really grow this thing really quick. So um, we're still in that early development stages of launching the company, but yeah, like I said, the market's been very receptive, and we're growing this as we speak.
Amazing. And if you had to kind of put like an objective or a target on what you're kind to what you're trying to achieve at the moment, would that be finding items of kind of higher value, growing your customer base, growing your premiums of your existing portfolio? What does growth look like to you?
Yeah, our focus is on market share. Like I said, there's been companies in this space before, or other companies in this space now, but our real plan of attack is taking market share for people that are looking for a company that's new and innovative and really caters to what their needs are. Um, so I don't know if it's so much growing. I mean, we want to grow our customer base. That's really what we're trying to do. Um, but yeah, no, this is it's a product that hasn't been marketed in this space. The product's available, but our real play is marketing and aligning ourselves with some of the big players in the industry, whether it's authentication companies, whether it's auction houses and stuff of that nature. But yeah, we're just trying to grow out our customer base and that this product is available because, like I said, it hasn't heavily been marketed in this space in quite a bit of time.
Amazing, yeah, and that makes complete sense. So yeah, I wish you the best of luck with your plans to grow. And yeah, so I guess an interesting question would be around pricing as well, because valuations for these collectibles can be quite qualitative or subjective. So you've already kind of mentioned taking a photo of the front or the back, depending on the item. Um, so would that kind of stay internally within your team to get valued within your team, or will they go to be appraised from a third party? What does that process look like?
So what the process looks like when we schedule these high value items, the client or the insured gives us an approximate value of those items. Our claims are settled on actual cash value basis. So they give us an estimate of what they believe the cost of the item is at the time of insuring that item, similar to like insuring jewelry or artwork. And then if there's a loss, there's plenty of tools in this hobby that do evaluations where we base it on comp. So at the time of the loss, we use a third party that helps us come up with the valuation on these items based on true comps, if it's a baseball card or a card collectible, what they've been selling for in the market. There's platforms such as like Card Ladder or Market Movers and stuff like that show us recent sales of those items. So we do the best we can for those evaluations, but those evaluations are determined at the time of loss because they do fluctuate.
Yeah, of course. I was going to say the price of something today is probably very different to what it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Right. And it moves up and down. It's not always, going up in value. If a player breaks his leg or has some negative publicity on them and the prices, plummet, we take that into consideration as well. So as that market moves, that's why our settlement on a claim is based on actual cash value basis. what the item's worth at the time of the loss.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, of course. And then if you were to talk about kind of your kind of software journey for Stadium, um, obviously you're a company in California in the US. You've probably embarked on this journey where you need to find someone who can help provide a technology platform, for example. What was that journey like, and how did you come across Inslee?
Yeah, so we're insurance people. We're collectors and insurance people. We're not tech people here on our team, myself and my founders. When we were searching for a company, we tried to look at someone that was new and innovative. We didn't want something just right off the shelf because our whole premise was to be tech forward on this. And so when we saw Inslee and kind of what they were doing in the space, and we actually have a front end developer as well that we use that hasn't done insurance products before, but we wanted everyone to come into this kind of with an open mind and see our vision. So there were some growing pains because of that, but I think that for us, that was the way to do it. We wanted our product to be different than other products out there. And the whole thing with the video technology that we're using and the ability for a customer to download a mobile app and take photos and catalog their own collection digitally. Um, our journey was to talk to a company that was open and receptive to what our ideas were. And, you know, that's how we chose them. Uh, it's one of those things you don't know if it's the best decision or the worst decision until you jump in and get
Yeah,
going.
of
But
course.
it's been positive experience. I mean, I would think that the back end and the front end developers as well as ourselves have learned along the way, and it's been a good experience.
Amazing. And then obviously, if you're to look at kind of what yourselves do and what Inslee does, Inslee obviously covers the whole kind of end-to-end space, so from policy management, product building, product distributing, accounting and reporting, even claims now as well. So which one of those kind of features do you use more often than the others, for example? So obviously the policy management one is probably the biggest thing, but is there anything else around that that you also use?
Yeah, it really is the policy management part of that. But we have, as we get more familiar with the system and its capabilities, we are using other things as well. Like I said, we're cataloging and we use our digital platform to store, photos, store videos of collections. But its capabilities are far beyond what we what we use it for. But the management system is the biggest piece of the puzzle that's been very useful. And we've gotten familiar with the system and its capabilities, and every day we're learning more of how we can use it to better serve our customers.
Yeah, of course. And then what about the financial side of things? Do you feel like since you've got Inslee, maybe your financial reporting or kind of your reporting in general has improved?
Yeah, so I don't do the reporting. One of our partners does all the reporting, so he's more familiar, probably speak better on that than I can. But we have been using that tool because we are an MGA and we have a carrier. There are reports that we have to pull monthly and report over to our back end carrier, and we have we've been, as far as I know, that it's been working smoothly.
Nice. And I guess it makes sense. And I think there's a conversation I had with another customer last week, and they actually outsource all of their kind of finance related things because they purely want to focus on the underwriting, which makes complete sense. But say, for example, if another MGA approached you, could be in the US, could be in the UK, somewhere in Europe, and if they were to ask you if Inslee is worth it, what would you tell them, or what would you say are the kind of the standout one or two things that sets us apart from everyone else?
Yeah, I think it's worth it. My I think I've mentioned this before to others that have asked me about it. It's a lot of it has to do with you want to deal with a company that you can communicate with, and who's receptive and is is willing to hear out the issues that you have, and that can actually solve problems that you are incurring in time. Because we're a new MGA, we're learning along the way as well. We're one of, I think, the few or the first MGAs that Inslee's worked with in the United States. So things are different here than how things are done in other markets and other countries. And they've been able to help us along the way to correct those differences. And like I said, the communication's been great with them. Every person that we've worked with in Inslee has been very open to what we're doing, and hear us out with what our needs are. And we've been very fortunate that they've been willing to work with us and help us solve issues that we have along the way.
Nice. That's really, really good and reassuring to hear. So yeah, so if we had to, I guess we've already kind of touched on the impact the NC had on Stadium, so I guess that's kind of fine for now. Do you have kind of any closing remarks that you'd like to share? So, one good one, perhaps at least that would interest me is, what are your plans for the future, for the next year, for the next 5 years, for example? Are there any exciting things on the horizon that you'd like to tell your customers?
Yeah, so no, I mean we're growing every day. So our big thing is we're working with partnerships with other people within the hobby. That's a big thing for us, is these partnerships where we can be embedded on different platforms. That will be a big part of our growth and journey. But the other thing is we're always keeping an eye out for other niche markets that collectors, we're finding out day by day people collect different things, whether it's coins, comics. We have people that collect things such as wine and bourbon and stuff like that. And as we learn these different markets out there, we're taking a look at always at different avenues where things that are typically not covered under your homeowner's insurance. And especially being here in California, you want to deal with a company that understands those niche markets. If you're dealing with things for example, on your homeowner's insurance, they typically have sublimits. It could affect the renewability of your homeowner's insurance if you file a claim. Higher deductibles on your homeowner's insurance. But you really want to deal with a company that understands the space, such as, sports memorabilia, if that's what you collect. And so our idea, we don't want to spread ourselves too thin across all these different niche markets, but if we find different markets and we find there's a need and the market size is big enough, we'll definitely look at diving into these different markets out there.
Amazing. That makes sense. And I guess more of a personal question, really, because I think since 2021, for example, we've seen the rise of digital assets and digital collectibles. There was a time over COVID and around lockdown where people were buying apes for hundreds and thousands of pounds and millions of pounds, and crypto punks as well. So, what's your take on the kind of the digital space? Is that something that you will kind of consider in the future, or is it too young? But yeah, great to get your take on that.
Yeah, for us, it's too young. I mean, that market's been highly volatile. Same with the crypto, the NFTs. We've seen that market take off sky high, and in certain cases it's plummeted. As an insurance company, you want some kind of stability in the market and what you're insuring, or for the product that you're selling. So maybe down the road we'll look at that as if there's more stability in those markets. But at this point, we are not insuring NFTs or digital assets at this point. We're strictly, sports memorabilia, tangible product that people collect. But yeah, no, I mean, I think there's companies out there that have dipped their toes in that market, but that's really not our space at this time.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that's very well said. I think if you can retain the focus on kind of what you're good at or what you know, I think that's yeah, I think that makes complete sense. Okay, Dan, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Inslee Insights pod. Yeah, we would like to thank you again. And yeah, if any of our listeners have a question for Dan or about Stadium Insure, please feel free to leave them in the comments. But yeah, see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.